You're listening to the Quint's podcast.
Syed Ali Shah Geelani, the 92-year-old veteran Hurriyat leader who guided the separatist movement in Kashmir, passed away late on 1st September at his Srinagar residence. Though he tendered his resignation from the Hurriyat Conference almost 15 months ago and has been in house arrest for more than a decade, his death brought a near-total blackout of communication services in the valley, an overnight curfew, and the presence of hundreds of security personnel on the streets of Srinagar. A teacher-turned-separatist, Geelani's political career spanned over 6 decades, rallying around a single, unwavering agenda of merging Jammu and Kashmir with Pakistan. Apart from his hardline views, he commanded a large support group, especially among the valley's youth. However, his departure has now left his party, the Tehreek-e-Hurriyat, without a captain, and with the centre also considering a ban on the Hurriyat faction, the party is left at a crossroads on what lies ahead in their future. In today's podcast, we discuss with Srinagar-based journalist Shakir Mir on how Geelani shaped Kashmir politics over the years and what his death means for the future of the Hurriyat. You're tuned in to The Big Story, the podcast where we dissect the headline-making news for you, and I'm your host, Himmat. So, Shakir, thank you so much for coming on the Big Story podcast. It's a pleasure having you as a guest for this very special episode. I want to first speak about the events after the news of Mr. Geelani's death broke out. From what we know so far from reports is that local authorities sprung into action, making a beeline for his residence, and also reportedly asked the family to bury him immediately. Like some reports have also stated that the police, quote unquote, snatched his body and did not even allow family members to attend the final rites. There's also been a snap curfew in the valley, phone lines being disconnected, and even internet services being halted. Can you paint us a picture on what happened after his death was announced and the situation in Srinagar at the moment?
Right now we are. Yesterday, day before yesterday, when I was in my room when we got the news that there has been demise of Mr. Geelani. So we knew instinctively we knew what's going to happen. We were anticipating the crackdown. We were anticipating the protest. Possibly, we were also anticipating the uprising. The kind of one we witnessed in 2016. Although similar, the kind of the kind of setting around us was similar, because certainly mobile networks went off, internet went off, and even the broadband connections went off for a night. So we clearly thought that we were back into 2019 situation when there was this overarching clampdown on Kashmir in the aftermath of abrogation of 370. But thankfully that did not happen, and it lasted only for a day. And today, I think by 10 p.m. they are likely to resume the telephone and internet services as well. Okay. But what we are hearing is that Mr. Geelani, when he died, because he was already suffering from prolonged illness, he was already expected to depart by his family members. That's why some of family members who were putting up at other places, they would also come, and they were already there. But then we heard the news that police has decided that his body will not be given to them for the burial. In fact, police are saying that we facilitated. We did not snatch the body, but we facilitated the burial process. But family members say that there are even some video recordings from the room that show how family members are trying to resist the police trying to take away the body. I have those videos, and families are there shouting. They're telling police that we will not give you the body. Let us do this ourselves. Wow. And Mr. Geelani expressed the wish to be buried at the martyrs' graveyard, there are many martyrs' graveyards across Kashmir. One of them is in Srinagar as well, where every person who has been shot dead or killed by the Indian government forces over the last 30 years is being buried. So it's sort of there has a symbolic value for Kashmiris. So Geelani had expressed this wish to be buried at the martyrs' graveyard, but that was denied. Instead, just a few meters from his house, there's another graveyard, a local graveyard in that neighborhood. Where he lives, where he was interred, I think by the police, because that's what we are being told, that the police facilitated all the last rites and the burial process. But there was a lot of anger, and police was anticipating it. In fact, I tried to get in touch with the officers. They said yes, we are going to, put the Kashmir Valley under high alert, and mobile internet communication networks will be down, and even the movement will be restricted, so that they fear that some escalation of law and order might happen in Kashmir, who could possibly turn there might be another uprising. And because this one came in the aftermath of 370 abrogation, so they expected that they it will be very furious, because Kashmiris are already very angry over a lot of things that are happening, with respect to land laws, with respect to domicile, with respect to the press freedom, with respect to the other civil freedoms which have been consistently not being given to them since abrogation, since August 5, 2019. So eventually, there was this military, the area where Mr. Geelani lives were completely turned into a military fortress. I could see the videos. My friends were there. They had invited me, but my family members were very apprehensive as to what could happen, so they didn't let me go. But eventually, I did manage to get the contacts. I spoke to my friends who were there, and they did describe what was completely they did not allow press to attend that place. Press was completely barred. My friend and editor of Kashmir Wala, Mr. Fahad Shah, he was also denied access to that place. So that place was completely sealed. And right now, the only way that the processions in his favor, or his funeral processions, people could not join his funeral processions, is because there was a very, very severe crackdown. There were checkpoints everywhere in Srinagar. Even I was coming from hospital, and I had to turn my car and take a very long route to reach my home, because there was stone pelting going on, and the roads were sealed with those wire meshes, that were coils of wire which were placed on the roads. So there's a fully, complete crackdown. I mean, there are a lot of distress across Kashmir. I could see people on the road. They're talking. They're asking to each other if they had BSNL phones, so that they could call their relatives. There is a lot of distress on the streets right now. So the clampdown is extreme.
Now, Shakar, I want to speak regarding the reasons for these fears of protest in the valley due to Mr. Geelani's death. Like, he has always been labeled as a quote unquote hardliner for his uncompromising rules on Kashmir. What earned him that label? Can you expand on that?
See, he has already witnessed so many talks. When we speak about Kashmir politics or conflict, we really tend to begin with 1989, when the insurgency began, because that's what public, how the media has framed the discourse around Kashmir, that it began, the problem began in 1989. But that was not the case. I mean, right from 1947, there have been demands for plebiscite. They are saying that Kashmiris have been saying that if there was a promise, why not fulfill this? And in fact, there were many UN mediators in between. And then eventually we had 1964 uprising, and there were also allegations of unfair elections and shooting of protesters right up to 1975, when Mr. Sheikh Abdullah was released after 22 years of imprisonment. He was also released thrice in between, but totally detention period lasted between 1953 and 1977. So then he decided to forego everything. He decided, let's move forward and let's not worry about the back. But what that did was this plebiscite front people, they were really they felt disillusioned. They said this is a betrayal of our values and all these, and then there were talks, and so eventually there was this impression that Indian government is not serious with the democracy. They just want these to buy time, and by the time they think that everything is okay, they control things with their might. So it is very futile to have conversations. Geelani even says that there have been this number of talks between India, over 100 talks. I mean, some 100, he gives a precise number, I think 140 round of talks with the Indian government, but nothing has come out of this. So what this thing did was, this clicks with Kashmiri people. This finds traction because Kashmiri people have seen that how Sheikh Abdullah first so what is being viewed as a capitulation of some kind, and then they also see that people who were already in the separatist camp have turned into mainstream Christian. So that made Geelani exceptional. He said that I will not be buckling under any pressure. So whatever happens is transparent, and I will only allow talks to happen once certain conditions are met. And those conditions were like withdrawal of forces, repealing of laws like Armed Forces Special Powers Act, India recognizing that Kashmir is a disputed territory, and then honoring that this will be solved via plebiscite. So that's what made him popular among Kashmiris, because when Kashmir realized that every leader has one problem or the another, or
Yeah.
that some leaders are predisposed for a quote unquote compromised. So
Yeah.
compromised. So that made Gilani a very exceptional leader in the eyes of people.
Yeah, I also want to speak to you now, like regarding the support that he enjoyed. Like he enjoyed a large amount of support, especially from the Kashmiri youth as well. Like he was a big player in electoral politics, like having been a three-time MLA in the J&K Assembly, like even in the notoriously rigged elections of 1987. Like, but he was also known for drafting protest calendars and like leading many street agitations from 2008 onwards to 2016, I think, which also reportedly increased like his influence in the region. So, can you shed some light on what kind of moves made him that kind of a popular leader?
Yeah, let me give you an anecdotal, perspective of me as a teenager in 2008 and 2010 when I was, when I saw what happened, because I lived in the old part of the Srinagar city, and that's what was the bastion, the stronghold of these protests and all that. So what
Yeah.
happened was Gilani would visit every house of every teenager who had died in police firing, and that
Mhm.
would make him very popular. When he visited the families of these people, he would pay condolences, and he would try to console the families, and that would make him very popular, because that people felt that it's a prestigious thing to have Mr. Gilani come and visit the family. And he did that repeatedly. There were close to 60 deaths in 2008, and around 120 deaths in 2010 uprisings. So
Mhm.
everywhere Mr. Gilani would visit, and he would give speeches, and those speeches will make him very popular, because those speeches actually, try to outline how during the history of Kashmir, Kashmiris have witnessed so much tribulations and privations, and yet leaders were, they turn out to be sellouts, and that how his hardline stance is the only posture, is the only political posture that would yield something for Kashmiris, and that really had traction for Kashmiri youth. And this visiting of people from every household. I remember there was one killing in my locality, and he visited in 2010, and women would come out with milk, they would throw flowers, and they would throw perfumes and coconut waters and whatnot. And that was the kind of, and who the in the family where Gilani would visit would have, their prestige will go up, because they'll be called as some. It was something to have Gilani visiting that house, and also that the speeches. I remember in 2010 during protests, he would give speeches, and wherever he could not reach, he would deliver these speeches on phone, and those phone would be put on a microphone inside a mosque, and then loudspeaker would blare out his speeches, and people would listen, and they would listen to him very, very intently. And he held all the people in thrall, and those speeches would be recorded, and those recordings would be amplified, and they would travel far off in villages across Kashmir. Even those speeches were recorded in Srinagar, but they would travel in the rural hinterland as well. And that's exactly what made him very popular within the youth, because he didn't want to compromise over anything. And he kind
Okay.
of he said, these things will happen, and eventually Kashmiris did realize that these things were happening. He would even in speeches say that this is how India will abrogate 370, and it will make India will sell the Kashmiri
Mhm.
land, and the demographic changes, and that's exactly what happened in 2019. So Kashmiris think that he was really prophetic in that sense.
Now, although he had like pro-Pakistani sentiment, there was also other sides to him as well. Like from what reports I've read, like I read in your article as well that you wrote for the Quint, that Jilani also wrote for the Delhi Khidmat, in which he praised India for its secular democracy. And then he has also famously opposed both former Pakistani
Musharraf.
President Pervez Musharraf and his 4-point formula for the Valley, and also the Indian government as well. So, can you draw a comparison on what his relationship with the Pakistani government has been compared to the Indian side? Like, has it evolved over the years, or has it remained the same?
No, I don't think he appears to be very cold to Pakistan. I think it was during Musharraf times the relationship appeared to be nose diving, because Musharraf was uh, thrusting on this 4-point formula which would have made Kashmiri LOC a formal international border. So he was saying that this is kind of you are gutting the whole thing. This is not what Kashmiris want. They want their voice to be heard by a plebiscite, a UN brokered plebiscite. So you are gutting the whole thing because you want peace to. You want to give a big chunk of this. You want to cede your territory to India without just want to keep that side of Kashmir, and you want to end this. And that was what in fact, when he met Geelani during early 2000s, he's said to have told them that this is not acceptable, and that you are ruining Pakistan, because that time Musharraf was under US pressure to act against militants and to close all these things. US wanted Pakistan to focus on its western border, so they had their own pressures as well. But Gilani was saying that this will be ruinous for overall Kashmir dispute, but overall we see have been a strong proponent of Kashmir's accession with Pakistan. But in several interviews with Seema Mustafa of NewsX, with Nirupama Subramaniam, who was then working with the Hindu, or other journalists as well, local journalists like Mehboob Jilani, or he says he makes a very nuanced point. He says that I might personally favor accession with Pakistan, but that's not what I want for Kashmiri people. I want a plebiscite for Kashmiri people, and if they choose India, I will accept that decision. So that's what he says. He's on record to have said this. He said, my point is that plebiscite should be held. The UN promise should be delivered. The promise should be fulfilled, and that's what I want. It's not necessary that Kashmiri should compulsorily vote for Pakistan. I mean, I might have my own personal wishes, but that's not what I want for Kashmiri people. I want to have them complete freedom to decide what they are going to do. So there was a lot of nuance in this. So when we tell him that he's a pro-Pakistan leader, we try to glide over this nuance, what was in him. And as far as his comments with respecting their secular democracy is concerned, yes, that was the time. I think that was before 1950s. That time Kashmir was enjoying a certain leaders were there, and but even then he was if we read the history books, the first 7 years of Sheikh Abdullah were really I mean, history books don't judge him very kindly. They say that those 7 years were really sort of authoritarian. I mean, he showed a very authoritarian inclination with respect to other. So Sheikh Abdullah's years were very authoritarian. So possibly, I think in those years, Gilani's mind was not that. He did not witness that kind of political evolution that he did later. So at that time, he was mentored by one of NC's leading politicians, Mr. Maulana Masoodi. So it's very likely that under his influence, he would have spoken or written these articles. But when he witnessed that political maturity, when his political philosophy really blossomed, it was under a different personality. A lot of people were disillusioned at that time, because immediately after the arrest of Mr. Sheikh Abdullah, Kashmiris felt that they are really trapped. That's what I think that's the start of very dangerous phase of Kashmiri politics, when Sheikh Abdullah was arrested, because that made a lot of people disillusioned with India, and those disillusionments manifested in different ways. In Gilani's case, it was more he saw himself being propelled to more Jamaat Islami ideology, and he thought his political beliefs would be best expressed by adhering or espousing that kind of ideology.
So, with the death of Geelani, where does the Tehreek-e-Hurriyat or the Hurriyat Conference stand? Like, what does the future for the separatist party look like at the moment?
Yeah, basically what happens is that Geelani died before announcing any successor. So two names were that people who had certain level of respectability among people was Ashraf Sehrai, who has died earlier this year, and Mr. Masrat Alam, who is another Hurriyat leader, but he's in jail since 2010, I guess, because of his police alleges that he has been stoking the stone pelting in Kashmir, and it is because of him that a lot of unrest happens. So he's being arrested under one PSA, Public Safety Act, after another. So these people were the ones who could have succeeded Gilani, but one of them has died, and another is in jail and is unlikely to be released. So Geelani has actually died without announcing his successor, and now his successor should be someone who has a public face, who is already very popular. And I don't think there is anyone. I mean, there's no such a leader who will, and Indian government will be very wary, not to allow anybody who tries to match the Geelani's influence, because that would be that would undermine the Indian government's efforts, that they try to invest so much into trying to sort of quote unquote defang what is going on in Kashmir. And if they have a new leader, that will be really detrimental to the Modi government's interests. So but that aside, that will also create a vacuum, because when we talk about mainstream parties, they are, while they are elected by certain votes, they go in villages and towns to solicit votes in the name of development, but also tell that larger conflict, Kashmir conflict is there, and we are not going to talk about, it's not in our domain, we are coming to you to vote for Bijli Sadak and Pani. But that means that when it comes to larger Kashmir conflict, no one is going to talk, and that creates a political vacuum. That creates a very strong political vacuum, because you have nobody to now. Suddenly Kashmiris feel that their political aspirations are being gutted, and nobody is going to talk about them. When these things happen in societies, when we have such kind of political vacuum, it creates a room for more radical discourses. It creates a room for more violence, more violent responses, because ultimately violence is just that. It is the eventuality which has been caused by the political vacuum. When nobody talks on your behalf, you resort to violence to be heard, or to be noticed. So in the longer run, it will only create vacuum. It will allow more radical groups, or groups with more radical ideologies to emerge. We have already seen the groups like Ansar Ghazwatul Hind, who says that we are associated with Al Qaeda. We have seen that Islamic State of Jammu and Kashmir. So these things, these parties or these groups will likely attract more recruits, possibly, because they will say that everything is they will be more attracted to this fatalistic narrative about Islamic Caliphate and all that. It is precisely because peaceful kind of political mobilization wasn't there, and moderate political mobilization was disallowed. So they tend to become more radical over time. So this is how it will play out in the longer run.
Well, it surely remains to be seen who will fill the leadership vacuum that Geelani has left behind, as you said. But Shakir, thank you so much for your time today. I know it was quite a trouble as well with all the internet clampdown in Srinagar at the moment. But thank you so much for making time for us, and also shedding some light on who Geelani is as a person and the future for the Hurriyat Party as we see so far. If you liked listening to this episode, please subscribe to The Big Story for episodic updates. We're available on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. For other podcasts, please log on to the Quint website, and for any feedback, please shoot an email to podcast@thequint.com.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint's website and check out our other podcasts.